Hello, welcome to yet another episode where we shall be looking at the preparation for the grade 8 paper 1 mathematics for the final year examinations. Okay, so in paper 1, there are just certain aspects or certain topics that we need to look at before we can really go for a paper 1. Topic number 1 that we normally look at is basically what we call the whole numbers. And then these whole numbers can be broken down into, you see, factors and multiples, okay? We also have things to do with ratios, rate. We also have speed, distance, and time. And then we also have the finance, okay, the financial part of it, of the mathematics. And then we also look at the properties of whole numbers when you talk about whether the numbers or whether the expressions are having a distributive property, associative, and things of the sort. Then besides the whole numbers, we have what we call the integers in paper 1. Then we also have what we call the exponents and indices, okay? And then besides the exponents, we also have the equations in paper 1. We also have what we call the number patterns. And then after the number patterns, which is the last part, will be the functions and relationships. Okay, so one other thing that I haven't forgotten is basically the algebraic expressions, in as much as this can sometimes be combined with the equations, okay? But they are not the same thing, but different stuff. All right, so basically these are the topics that we can anticipate to have in a paper 1 of mathematics, okay? If there's anything that I've left out, we shall probably get it through the paper. So we're gonna use this just as a template for our revision, okay? So it's a paper from one of the districts. Okay, so the instruction is telling us that we have 5 compulsory questions, okay, that need to be answered. Section A has 5 MCQs, and then section B has questions 2 to 5. You must answer in the spaces given below. All right, let's dive into the paper. Question number 1. They want us to circle the correct answer from the 4 possible options that have been given. So before we even go ahead and start with the paper, I want to send my sincere appreciation to all of you guys that take your time and watch these videos, take your time, you share, you comment, you subscribe. Thank you very much. You mean a lot, okay, to the cause. Okay, question 1, they're telling us that the prime factors of 200 are, okay, so we need to find the prime factors. And how do we get prime factors? We can use our calculators, or we can break down 200 using just prime numbers. So by 2 is 100, by 2 is going to be a 50, by 2 is going to give us a 25. This 25 cannot be divided through by 2. We cannot divide it by 3. Let's use 5 to be a 5, and then 5 is going to be a 1, meaning that we have 3 2s, okay, and then 2 5s. 3 2s and 2 5s. I think option B makes more sense. Okay, then 1.2, determine the value of the following integer in its simplest form. So we are adding integers. So negative 20, we know that a plus and a minus gives us a minus, and then 13. So minus 20 minus 13 gives us minus 33. Aibo, there's no answer here. Okay, so we're putting a question mark on this question because the answer needs to be a negative 33, okay? If you are to follow the rules of integers. Okay, so besides that, we move on, 1.3. Simplify the common fraction below. So whenever we are dividing fractions, we need to change the sign from division to a multiplication. And if we change that, the 4 goes on top, the 3 comes down. So it's going to be 4 over 3. And then we have 6 times 4 is a 24. 8 times 3 is also a 24. 24 divided by 24, the answer is a 1. So option C becomes the best option there. Then 1.4, we have the equation 2x plus 1. And then they want us to get the values of A and B. So in this case, we're going to do substitution. Where there is x, the input, we put a -1. I resubstitute with a -1. So y is 2 times a -1 plus 1. So it's a -2 plus 1, which gives us a -1. So A is a -1. With B, do the same thing. Where there is x, we put a 2. So 2 times 2 plus 1, which gives us a 5. So -1 and 5 is what we are looking for, which is option D. And then 1.5, simplify the following algebraic expression. Okay, so with this, we need to collect the like terms, okay? And we know that like terms are basically expressions or terms that have the same letter and the same exponent. So this is a squared. So this must go with this because it also has a squared, must also go with the 8 since it's a squared. And then this 5 and the 3 must be moving together. Now, when you're adding algebraic expressions, pay attention to the sign that is in front of that number or that term. So like the 8, the sign in front of the 8 must be a positive. So it's going to be 8a squared. And then the 4, there's a plus sign in front, so it's going to be a plus 4a squared. The 7 is a minus since there's a negative in front of it. And then we're going to say minus 5a, then plus 3a. Then 8 plus 4 is a 12. 12 minus 7, it's going to give us a 5a squared. And then a -5 plus 3 is giving us a -2 with a. So this becomes our final answer. We cannot subtract this because they are not like terms. So 5a squared minus 2a, which is option D. Okay, so out of the 5, we got one question without an answer. Okay, the options that were given were wrong, or probably something happened along the signs. Okay, question 2. Write 120 and 200 as products of their prime factors. So we've already seen the 200, okay? That is going to be 2 by 2 by 2 by 5 by 5, okay? So I'm going to say that prime factors of 120, I'll do the same thing, the way we broke down the 200. So by 2 is 60, by 2 is a 30, by 2 is a 15, 15 can be divided by 3, which gives us a 5, and then by 5 is a 1. So the aim of this division is to make sure that we don't get any remainders. If ever the number you're using is going to give you a remainder, then do not use it. Go to the next factor. So meaning that 120 is going to be 2 by 2 by 2 by 3 by 5. And then the prime factors of 200, we said it is 2 by 2 by 2 by 5 by 5. So I'm just going to write it in this format. And as much as people would also write it as 2 cubed times 3 times 5. This is 2 cubed times 5 squared, okay? This format is also allowed. I want to use this because it will be easier for me to identify what is common when I'm finding the HCF and the LCM. Okay, not saying that we cannot do it this side. We can also use that approach. So let's say we're looking for the HCF. So HCF, look for what exactly is common. So there's a 5, there's a 5. There's no 3, so there's a 2, there's a 2. This 2 can go with that 2, this 2 can go with that 2. So I only need to multiply what I underlined. So it's a 2 by 2 by 2 by 5. Okay, and then I get an answer of 14. Now, when I'm looking for the LCM, okay, I can just get this HCF because we've seen what is common, okay? The only thing that is left is this 3 and then this 5 that is not matching with anything. So if I get the 40 multiplied by what is left, so times 3 times 5, So 40 times 3 times 5 gives us a 600. So this becomes the LCM. All right, so that is 2.1.1. 2.1.2, Lerato decided to buy a new TV from this furniture store on hire purchase. The TV cost 9,000 and she was charged 16% interest. Calculate Lerato's monthly payments if she decides to pay for the TV over 2 years. Now, whenever we're dealing with hire purchase, the type of interest that is used is what we call simple interest. But in this scenario, Lerato is not going to pay any deposit. Okay. So in other words, this 9,000 is more like a loan amount that is given to Lerato. So we're going to write down the simple interest formula. Okay. Because we want to see how much is Lerato going to pay overall. So the P is the initial amount, which is the 9,000. 1 plus 16% is 16 over 100 multiplied by 2 years. Okay, when I punch this into my calculator, we're saying 16% times 2, I'm getting 11,880. Okay, so 11,880. So this is how much Lerato is going to pay for the TV after the 2 years. Now, since we are looking for monthly payment, okay, let's get this amount and distribute it within the number of months in 2 years. So we know that 1 year is 12 months, which means 2 years is going to be 24 months. So divide this by 24. Okay, Lerato is going to be paying 495 rands. Okay, so cheap for a monthly payment of a TV. All right, then 2.2, simplify without the use of a calculator. Okay, so we have different signs combined with a whole lot of aspects. So what we're going to use is basically the BODMAS. And with our BODMAS, we know that we need to start with brackets. And in this case, we don't have any brackets. Do we have any divisions? Yes, let's start with the divisions. So it's going to be a 20 divided by -5. That's going to give us a -4. Minus 28 divided by 7 is a 4. So we have -4 minus 4, which gives us a -8. That should be our final answer, because when signs are different and you are dividing, you always get a negative. Multiplication or division of different signs gives us a negative. Multiplication or division of the same signs must give us positive. 2.2.2, they're telling us that we must simplify this. What's the cube root of 27? That's a 3. The square root of 16 is a 4. A negative next to a negative gives us a positive 2. 3 minus 4 is a -1 plus 2. This gives us a 1. All right, then 2.2.3, yes, I forgot to talk about the fractions, common and decimal fractions under our scope. Okay, so whenever we are dealing with common fractions, whether you're adding or subtracting, you need to find the LCD. But to make life easy for myself, I'll just use what we call the crisscross. So 7 times 8 minus 12 times 3 over 12 times 8. I'll need to simplify this. So I know that 7 times 8 gives us a 56 minus a 36 over, we know that 12 times 8 is a 96. So what is 56 minus 36? We get a 20 over 96. And then we just need to look for what is common to simplify this fraction. So it's going to give us a 5 over 24. Okay, so how did we get the 5 over 24? We just divide by 4. Okay, by 4 is a 5, by 4 gives us a 24. So that's the answer. And then how do we increase 24 in the ratio of 2 to 3? So increasing is different from dividing in a given ratio. So when you're increasing, let the big number go to the top. the small number go to the bottom, and then multiply by 24. We can say over 1. And then we can reduce this. By 2 is going to be a 1. By 2 is going to be a 12. So 3 times 12, we get a 36. If not, just put everything in the calculator. Okay, you multiply 3 and 24, which should be like a 72 over 2. You still get your 36. Okay, then 2.4, write this number in scientific notation. So with scientific notation, the aim is to move the comma from wherever it is to the first two numbers that are not zeros. Okay, so how many steps are those? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. So we are moving 6 steps. So it's 5,38 times 10 to the negative 6. So when you're moving the comma to the right, you always have a negative exponent to the number of steps you moved, because every step you move is basically a 10. Okay. Then question number 3, use the algebraic expression to answer the questions. Okay, 5a to the 6 plus 20m to the 3 minus 4a to the 8 minus 7. How many terms are there? So terms can be differentiated using the plus or the minus sign. These are the two signs that separate terms. So here we go, there we go, there we go. Meaning that we have 1, 2, 3, and 4. So those are 4 terms. Identify the constant. So a constant is basically a number without a letter. A number without a letter. So in this case, it's the 7 that doesn't have any letter or any variable. So the sign in front of the 7 is a negative. So the constant becomes -7. And then what is the exponent of m? Remember, exponent is the number that is raised on another number or a letter. So this 3 becomes the exponent. Okay, and then what's the coefficient? Coefficient is basically the number that comes before the letter. Okay, when you look at a to the 8, the number before the letter is 4 together with a sign. So it's going to be a -4. And then are there any like terms? If so, we write them down. So remember what we say, that like terms are basically terms that have the same letters and the same exponents. So the letters are the same, A, but the exponents are different. So the answer is a no. And if it's a no, we cannot write anything down. Then simplify the following expressions. Subtract this from that. If I ask you to subtract 8 from 10, simply means that you're going to get the 10 minus 8, and then you get a 2. So the same happens here, or the same applies here. We're going to get the -5y plus 12xy. Then we have a 3y plus xy, and then we subtract this. We can use the column method, or we can just open the brackets nicely. Now, when you're doing your subtraction, we need to just follow the columns. Okay, we don't carry over, we don't borrow, we don't do anything of the sort. So we can start from this side. We have a 12xy minus 1xy, because xy alone is like a 1. There's an invisible 1 there. So 12 minus 1 gives us 11xy, but this 11 is a positive. No? And then -5y minus 3y. So -5 minus 3 gives us a -8y. So this becomes our answer. And then 3.2.2, we need to open up this. So when you're opening, you're using the distributive property. So it's a -4x multiplied by a -3x. And then plus -4x multiplied by a 3y minus -4x multiplied by a 4. So when you're multiplying expressions, multiply the numbers separately, multiply the letters separately. So -4 times a -3 gives us a 12. X times x gives us x squared. Then this positive and a negative together, they give us a negative. What's 4 times 3? That's a 12. X times y is xy. A negative and a negative gives us a positive. 4 by 4 is 16 with x. So that is our answer. We cannot simplify this further because these terms are not the same. We have x, we have xy, we have x squared. They are different terms. And then 3.2.3, we are dividing algebraic expressions. So the process is simple. Distribute. So 8a cubed over a squared minus 5a squared over a squared. We know that when dividing exponents, you must subtract. Okay, so that's going to be 8 with a. We have 2 a's down, we have 3 a's up. Cancel out the 2. Minus this a squared cancels the a squared, and then we have just the 5 left. And then 3.2.4, we need to find this. What's the cube root of 8? It's going to be a 2. The cube root of p cubed is just a p. Times square root of 16 is a 4. And then the square root of p to the 6 is going to be just a p to the 3. And then multiply this. 2 times 4 is going to be 8. P to the 1 and p to the 3 gives us a p to the 4. Now, when you're multiplying or dividing, we don't have like terms. Like terms only happen when you're adding and subtracting. Then 3.3, we have an equation. When you have any brackets in an equation, open up the brackets. So it's a 4x minus 8 is equal to negative 4 times 11 is a negative 44. Negative 4 times 2 is going to give us negative 8x. Let's collect the like terms. We move this 8 to that side, move this one that side. So it's a 4x. Since it's a negative, it's going to become a plus. The negative 44, since it's a negative, it's going to also become a plus. And then we know that 4 plus 8 gives us 12x. The negative 4 plus 8 must give us a negative 36. Then we need to get rid of the 12. We divide by 12. Okay, when you're multiplying, you divide. When you're adding, you subtract. So this must be a negative 3 as our final answer. So that brings us to the end of question number 3. Let's move on to question number 4, which is the number patterns. Study the following pattern and answer the questions that follow. Okay, so these are matchsticks that are being used to form triangles. Draw the next pattern. Okay, so figure 4, we have this, we have that, we have that, then figure 4 must have this. So we are adding those sticks. Okay, then give the general term Tn. So whenever we are writing the Tn, the question is, how are the number of sticks being added? So we add 2 sticks. You add 2 sticks, 2 sticks. So if you're adding 2 sticks, when you're writing your general term, start by writing this constant number with a n. Then get the first number. This is a 3. We subtract the 2. So 3 minus 2 gives us a positive 1. So this is the rule that the question simply wants. So it's going to be a 2n plus 1. Then how many matches will be used to make 10 triangles? So where there is n, we put a 10. So 2 times 10 plus 1. So that becomes 21 matches. All right, then we move on to 4.2, which is the flow diagram. We need to complete this. So negative 2 times 2 is giving us a negative 4. Negative 4 minus 3 is a negative 7. And then 3 times 2 is a 6. 6 minus 3 is a 3. 7 times 2 is a 14. 14 minus 3 is 11. 20 times 2 is a 40. 40 minus 3, we get a 37. Question number 5. Following line graph shows the yearly sales figures for the manufacturing company. So we have the years from 2002 up to 2006. These are the sales. Okay. First question, what were the sales in 2002? So the sales were basically 4. Okay, so I'm just going to say 4. They say the sales in rands. Is it rands? I don't know, but I'll say 4 rands. Then what were the sales in 2006? So 2006 is here, follow the line of 2006. The dot is on 8. Okay, so I'll say It's basically RS8. And then is the graph continuous or discrete? So this graph is continuous. Why is it continuous? Because the dots were connected. Okay, these dots were drawn and then they were connected. If the dots were just left alone without being connected, then the graph would be discrete. And then which year had the maximum cells? So when you talk of maximum cells, you're looking at the highest point, which is this one. And which year is this? It is 2005. Okay, and then calculate the difference between the cells in 2002 and 2006. So in 2002, we have 4 cells. In 2006, we have 8 cells. So we're going to say 8 minus 4, which gives us a 4. So difference means subtraction. Okay. And then lastly, 5.1.5, in which year was the greatest difference between the cells as compared to the previous year? So we need to see that from here up to here, if this is a 7 and this is a 4, there's a difference of 3. If this is a 7 and this is a 6, there's a difference of 1. If this is a 6 and this is a 10, there's a difference of 4. This is a 10, this is 8, there's a difference of 2. So the highest difference is between 2004 and 2005. Okay, so I'll say between 2004 to 2005. All right, so guys, that brings us to the end of this paper. That was out of 60 marks, okay? It's a paper 1. I wish you guys all the best in your preparation. I think I'll also try to source another paper 1 just to give more clarity, okay, just for practice and revision. Let's meet again when we are doing paper 2. Thank you very much, and I wish you guys all the best in your final examination.